the New York Times and other giants of media authorization notice that Iowa exists or we exist is perhaps less important than that people are gradually getting familiarized, not only through our activities, but through the activities of all of these very energetic editors whose names I mentioned. People are getting used to the idea that Italian-American writing is a literary category, does have a market, and some of these writers that you mentioned, like Luis de Salvo, for example, have been publishing books with major New York publishers, so that the situation really is changing almost week by week in my observation.
Do you think, or why do you think that it is important for Italian Americans to start writing more?
Yeah.
Do we have that kind of background? Why is that we don't?
Yes, yes. We, you know, in Iowa we have three mottos, and one of them, the second one, they came out of our experience. The second one, I'll start with that, is called write or be written. Write or be written, which means that if you don't tell your own story, then it'll be told for you by the anthropologist or the policeman or the reporter who's looking for a juicy story, or the movie director who's looking for a bloody story. Well, look, it sells. I mean, I'm not, as I say, I'm not arguing with the market. We're trying to engage in some kind of direct challenge with. That's a different matter.
Yeah, it's another way of changing also the image of our people. If you start writing your own image, your own story, right?
Well, I would say this, that the notion of an image and of an identity is in itself a little shaky. And when people crystallize it one way or another, they tend to get defensive, they tend to get hypocritical. What we're trying to do is to open a forum where people can talk freely about their experience, not only insofar as it is connected with the whole Italian-American matter, but certainly not leaving that out, and maybe also addressing themselves specifically to it. There are tens of millions of Italian-Americans with a common cultural heritage and historical memory in common, very often a lot of emotional conflicts in common. It's got to be possible for us to address those things at length and with all the complexity and surprise that comes from really articulated expression, rather than just from a lot of slogans and, you know, caricatures.
Well, it seems also one of the general accusations of Italian Americans is that they don't read enough. They don't read.
Right.
Obviously, there's this dilemma where they don't find Italian American books, and so they don't read. And the publishers say they don't read, so therefore we don't publish.
Okay, there you come to the very nub of what the whole thing is about. We started out with the idea of what does it mean to affirmative action? Do we only want affirmative action to be handed down to us? Or is there another kind of affirmative action that people engage in, which means changing your own history, changing your own future? And we looked at it, and our other two mottos have to do with this. The first one is read one another. At our first meeting, about 35 writers showed up at Teresa Aiello Gerber's house in Greenwich Village, and for 2 hours, we just moaned and groaned about how badly New York publishing had treated us, blah, blah, all this kind of stuff.
Just what I'm saying now.
Well, we had to get it off of our chest. And at a certain point, I said, okay, we've vented. Let's now talk in a positive way. I said, let's go around, everybody for 5 minutes talk about the Italian-American writer that you like best, other than, of course, yourself.
What happened?
Dead silence. And so I said, well, there's the problem. How can we complain? How can we complain that other people are not reading our books if we're not reading them? So we have to start with us. So we started this series of readings where we not only read one another's books, but we listen to one another read. And we learn a great deal about one another. And you know how it is. When you really open yourself to someone else, you learn a great deal about yourself.
Definitely.
So that's the first thing. And the second one is the motto that we tell people all the time nowadays, which is buy our books. In our newsletter every month, we have a little series that we call steerage.
Uh-huh.
It refers to the horrible conditions that our
Yeah, they
grandparents came here in the bottom of the
I came
ships.
in one of those.
You came in? Did you really?
Uh,
Steerage?
In 1953.
No kidding. What was it like?
I was a child, well, early teenage, but yeah, it was there. It was 100 people in the same room.
Wow.
2 or 3 people, one on top of the other. And you would see people lowering cargoes down just one flight down.
Right below. Yeah.
Yeah.
So you were cargo.
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
what
I
you
was
felt
cargo.
like. That's what in 1953. Who'd have
First
thought?
trip
I didn't
I did.
realize that it went on that late.
Yes, yes, it did. There's one thing that I like, because I've heard you saying that the Italian Americans need dialectics. This is going back to the fact that people don't talk.
Right.
We lack that kind of information because of loss of language, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
Last year I went to see a conference by Maya Angelou, and she spoke and said, you know, I was for such a long time without talking, then I wrote, but I lacked the courage to speak up and to read, and finally, once I had that courage, I could come out. And probably I believe that the Italians, having lost language and history probably of Italy, that now they're in a situation where they don't have that gift of speech yet. What is that when you say dialectics? We need dialectics.
Well, look, if you're going to speak to the real problems that confront you, in whatever quality they confront you, as an Italian American, as a man, as a woman, I mean, we all belong to more than categories, perhaps, that we can easily count. But if you're going to answer issues that face you as an Italian American, then you need to know, what does that mean historically? What does it mean to me? What do I inherit? How do I understand it? How do I relate? You need to know that. It certainly helps in knowing that if you've studied the history, if you've learned the language. Many Italian Americans have decided that they're not interested in remembering the language of Italy. It makes it very hard for them, I think, when they decide to really explore their own natures, because it's so connected with Italy. I mean, I forced myself at a certain point, even though I was very much a grown man and a father of children and all the rest of it, to learn this language. And we went and we lived in Italy for a year, and we really learned the language. And it made an enormous difference in my understanding of what goes on here. That makes it possible, then, to look at your situation and to talk from the kind of security that can only come from knowledge.
But what I was alluding to is perhaps that the Italian American, being of humble background, white-collar work and from the beginning, that now, in order to participate in a culture of the society such as the one in USA, we need to have a certain ability to express our thoughts, aside from the language, Italian, obviously. But that seems to be lacking. When somebody goes to 18th Street, they show the kids with watermelons, but the intellectuals are not there, or they are lacking, or it's something that we have to make an effort.
You bet. You bet. Look, I'm a teacher of reading and writing. That's what I teach. I teach writing and also study to college and graduate students. My idea always is that without reading, you don't really have much to say. And without writing and writing as a practice, you're never quite able to say it. And I think we absolutely must encourage this in ourselves and in our young people.
Well, we talk about young people in school. Do you have, generally speaking, Italian-American courses, Italian-American literature courses in some universities? Because as far as I know, there aren't.
Yes, we teach it at Brooklyn College. I've been teaching it there since 1979.
Okay, I think we have reached our time here, and we would like to say goodbye now.